Why don't mentors teach their real skills to disciples? I can make a special dish called sesame oil fragrant, sour, sweet, and spicy noodles. I'm probably the only person who makes it the way it's meant to be made. But here's the thing, everyone in my family knows how to make this dish. After I invented it 25 years ago, they all tasted it and loved it. They kept asking how I made it, standing there, watching me cook, trying to learn. I taught my siblings without holding anything back. When you're teaching 12-year-old kids, they don't have much to hide. 10 of my brothers and cousins all learned it together. They picked it up, but then they modified it according to their own tastes. They made it ridiculously simple, basically a foolproof version. The best part of these noodles is that they stimulate children's taste buds and whet their appetite. If a child in the family didn't want to eat, we'd give them a few bites of these noodles, and soon they'd be fighting for more. But my brothers altered the recipe to suit their own preferences. 18 years later, one of my sisters-in-law mentioned she was making an appetizing noodle dish for the kids. She proudly said that her husband had taught her how to make it. I casually asked, sesame oil fragrant, sour, sweet, and spicy noodles? My sister-in-law was surprised and said, huh? You add sugar? You can make this dish too? My husband taught me this recipe. At that moment, the other sisters-in-law joined in, all saying their husbands had taught them how to make this noodle dish. The thing was, none of them were making it correctly. Some didn't add sesame oil, others skipped the sweet and spicy sauce and used chili paste instead. Some didn't use vinegar, and some replaced soy sauce with powdered seasonings. Over half of them even boiled the noodles twice, turning them into mush. I was dumbfounded, completely at a loss. I had no idea what they were doing. Later, I made the noodles for them the right way. They couldn't understand how I made instant noodles taste like stir-fried noodles without even turning on the stove. Plus, the noodles were perfectly springy. When I explained it to them, they all said, that's not how my husband does it. They had been making this noodle dish for so long that they couldn't believe they were doing it wrong. One of them even insisted that her mother-in-law, my aunt, had been making this dish long before, and her version was the correct one. I told them that I was the one who invented it, the child who created this dish that kids love to eat. The explanation process was too complicated, so I'll just skip to the result. In the end, every sister-in-law believed that the version taught by her husband was the authentic recipe, and there I was, the actual inventor, sitting and eating the noodles I made for myself. As for whether the noodles are as good as I claim, I can only say that when I discovered all my sisters-in-law knew how to make this dish, I realized it must be pretty good. At least a few of my brothers instinctively passed the recipe on to their wives so they could make it for themselves and their kids. Sometimes they even made it for their employees, who went crazy for it. The employees had noticed more than once that the boss and his son would skip a perfectly good meal and instead eat instant noodles in the office. Naturally, they got curious, wondering if the boss was crazy or if there was something special about these noodles. I knew about this because I had brought some fried shallots to them. After delivering them, I sat down and waited for the meal. By then, their version of the recipe only kept 3 ingredients the same: sesame oil, fried shallots, and Thai sweet chili sauce. Everything else was different, but there were other stir-fried dishes and meat to go with it. It was definitely not just the noodles. Our family is known for feeding the employees well. The kids loved it too, my nephews and nieces couldn't get enough. My sisters-in-law would go back to their own families and proudly make the dish for their relatives. How could it not be good? Even the downgraded versions of the noodles were treated like secret family recipes. As for the original version, when I brought it out and sat down to eat, my brothers, even 10 meters away, would smell it and start drooling, then rush to make the noodles themselves. Later, some of my nephews wanted to eat this dish so badly that they refused to eat anything else, demanding their moms make these noodles. Some of them have even learned to make the dish on their own, now happily slurping their noodles. 3 generations of my family, including sisters-in-law from other parts of the country, all enjoy this dish. They love making it for themselves. I didn't have to make it for them. They wanted to eat it so much that they made it on their own. My sisters-in-law all thought their husbands had passed down some mysterious family recipe, bragging about it to others. I didn't brag about myself. I just pointed out that I was the one who invented the dish when they were showing off their noodle-making skills.